Welcome back. Donald Trump will be sworn in tomorrow. The event has been moved indoors because of the extreme cold weather. Now, in advance of the inauguration, I spoke to Republican State Senator Joe Gruters. I started by asking for his reaction to Governor Ron DeSantis' picking of Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody to replace Marco Rubio in the United States Senate.
Well, I think Governor DeSantis made a great pick with Ashley Moody. Obviously, she's battle tested. She's done a great job as a conservative attorney general for the state of Florida. And I think she's ready to go and to do battle on behalf of the state of Florida and to push President Trump's agenda. Because at the end of the day, the most important thing that the president needs right now are super strong allies in the United States Senate. And she certainly said that she was going to do that from day one. And she's going to go up there and do the best job that she can. And so I think it was a good pick by the governor.
It certainly is a good week to be a Florida Attorney General or a former Florida Attorney General. The last two Attorney Generals, one is on its way now to becoming United States Senator. The other is on its way to becoming the U.S. Attorney General. So that seems to be the new power position to be jumping off from.
Well, make no mistake, both Pam Bondi and Ashley Moody are probably the two highest vote getters over the last 20 years here in the state of Florida. Both extremely popular. They're actually, I think they've known each other for quite some time. And so it's, I think that they'll work well together up in D.C., like I said, going to battle on behalf of the president to make sure his agenda gets passed.
All right. I want to talk about the inauguration. Obviously, that you're in D.C. right now. That is the lovely backdrop of a classic D.C. hotel that you're coming to us from. But before we get to that, I did want to talk a little bit about the notion of a special session. There seems to be some back and forth that's been going on. The governor announced that he wanted to have a special session. The Senate President, Ben Albritton, and the House Speaker, Danny Perez, seemed to push back pretty hard, saying it was premature and possibly irresponsible to hold a special session before the president is actually sworn in and we get a clear idea of his agenda. The governor then pushed back again and seems to continue to want to push for it. Let's start with the basics. Do you believe you need a special session since the legislature is going to come into existence in March anyway?
Well, I think when you look at it from 30,000 feet above, I think that, and you see everything that's happening with this, I think the president needs as much support and help at the state level across the country. Of course, he has support from Florida. Of course, he has support from both the governor on this issue and the Speaker of the House, Danny Perez, and the Senate President, Ben Albritton. The question is can Florida be the model that other states can follow? And I think that you saw a reaction from the leadership of the legislative bodies that basically pushed back. It wasn't a pushback on the policies. It was a pushback because they weren't informed about the special session until a couple of minutes prior to, and there was no outline of specific policies that the governor wanted to see. And listen, when you have 160 members of the Florida legislature, 120 in the House, 40 in the Senate, but you have one presiding officer of the House, one presiding officer in the Senate, and a governor. All three of those people basically have to agree on some type of language that they want to see get passed. And the easiest way to do it is to build a bridge and to make sure you build consensus heading into anything like this. And that's what I would suggest. And I think that's why you got the pushback initially that you did. Again, has nothing to do with policy, because I know Speaker Perez and Ben Albritton are both strong supporters of President Trump, specifically on this immigration stuff. And they want to do everything they can to help the president out. And I think if maybe there was some better communication on the front end, we could have avoided some of this public battle that you're seeing right now. I think it's just disappointing and unneeded.
Well, this has been interpreted widely, and I certainly see it through the prism of for the first 6 years of the DeSantis administration, the legislature really played sort of a second fiddle role. It was the governor saying jump and the legislators basically saying how high. And this seemed to almost be the first recognition that the legislature, both the House and the Senate, are an equal branch of government to the executive. And I think my interpretation was that that's what Ben Albritton and Danny Perez were trying to articulate is that they are an equal part of the institution, and that they can't just be told by the governor and ordered by the governor to do certain things. Give me your perspective.
No, I agree completely. But in 6 months from now, I think we could look back at this moment and say, if we had better communication between the three of them, we never would have had this, never would have happened, because everybody at the end of the day is going to be on the same side on this issue. Everybody agrees we want to help President Trump. The question is timing. The question is how do we make sure that it happens in the right way? And you got to give the legislative leadership so they can give their bodies the information they need of what they're actually going to pass.
I want to now get to the reason I actually initially invited you, which was to talk about the inauguration of Donald Trump. You're there for that. Obviously, Florida has a huge contingent there up in D.C. right now. I want you to just sort of let's try to get that 30,000-foot view that we often talk about. What is the significance of Donald Trump walking back into the White House, of taking the oath of office on Monday at noon? Tell me what this moment means in American history that we'll look back on it as.
Well, listen, we can celebrate. I think the country's going to celebrate. I think obviously our party's going to celebrate. I think we can celebrate the faith in this country. Listen, I think it's a miracle that President Trump's going to be sworn in on Monday. Listen, remember in Butler, he was almost killed. He was a millimeter away from having his head blown off. And it's by the grace of God that he survived that assassination attempt, and he's going to be sworn in tomorrow.
Well, let's go back to the monumental nature of it, though. Talk a little bit more, if you can, just about what this moment means. Obviously, you talked about it being a miracle that he survived the attempt on his life, and then now being sworn in. What does this say where the country is today? Give me your perspective on Trump's election and now his return to the White House.
Well, listen, President Trump won all 7 battleground states, but this country is still split. You know, it's the House is split almost 50-50. The U.S. Senate is split almost 50-50. But I think President Trump was able to get reelected as a result of his appeal to the working class American and his ability to make things happen and get things done. And I think that's what you've already started seeing before, with the Israeli Hamas peace deal negotiations. He is going to continue to push the limit on what things can happen to make sure that our country is in the best possible shape that it's ever been. And listen, I think it's monumental from the standpoint of he was the 45th president of the United States. We didn't have the House. We didn't have the Senate when he lost his reelection. And at the end of the day, now he's being sworn in with the Republican House, with the Republican Senate. He has the ability to move his agenda forward. And I think he's a lot better prepared for what it takes to be successful in this position. And so I think he is going to absolutely be the greatest president of all time. I've talked to him. He is very excited. He truly believes deep down, and I wish everybody got to see the side of him that some people get to see, and that's of a genuinely concerned for the well-being of others individual who loves his country and who wants to make sure that he does everything he possibly can to be a great president.
We'll be right back after the break.